Now that we've seen lists as well as dictionaries, I want to talk about a concept that you often see in both of these collection types, and that's something called nesting. Now, if we imagine a list or a dictionary being something like a folder where lots of things can be stored inside it, then nesting lists and dictionaries is just a matter of putting one inside the other. For example, here's a dictionary that is very simple. It's only got one key value pair. Now, we know that we can add multiple key value pairs into the same dictionary by just adding a bunch of commas to separate them. Now, what if instead of having a simple value like a string or a number, I could also put a list as a value as well? Similarly, I could also use a dictionary as a value. In this case, we've got a list as the value for key, this first one, and we've got a dictionary as the value for key 2. Notice how this is a list and a dictionary nested inside another dictionary. The structure gets a little bit more complex, but it gives us more flexibility when we're trying to store more complex pieces of data. Coming back to our code, let's go ahead and create some sample dictionaries to see what this actually looks like in real life. For example, this could be a dictionary that contains the country as the key and the city, that is the capital, as the value. So for France, that's Paris. For Germany, that's Berlin. This is a very simple dictionary that you've seen already. Now, if I wanted to nest a list in a dictionary, then I would be able to represent even more complex data. For example, if I had a travel log where I was going to collect a dictionary of all the cities I had been for each of the countries I've traveled to. So, for example, if I had traveled to France and I wanted to say that I've been to multiple cities, I can't simply just say Paris and then Lille, Dijon. That doesn't really work because each key can only have one value. The only way that we can make these 3 pieces of data one value is by turning it into a list, like so. So now in our travel log dictionary, as represented by the curly braces, we have one key value pair, and it just so happens that the value in this case is a list. And of course, you can go on and add as many entries as you would like and still preserving this kind of structure of key being a string and the value being a list. Now, this idea of nesting isn't limited to dictionaries, by the way. You could also just nest a list in a list. So you could have a list which is A and then B, and then the third item just happens to be another list which has C and D. This is perfectly valid Python code, but it's not quite as useful as nesting a list in a dictionary or a dictionary in a dictionary because of the way that data is structured. Now, what if you wanted to nest a dictionary in a dictionary? Let's say that we wanted to expand our travel log. And instead of just storing the cities that I've visited in each country, what if I wanted to also keep track of how many visits I've made to that country? Or what if I wanted to actually label what this piece of data is? Because at the moment, it's kind of like, here's a bunch of cities that's associated with a country, but it doesn't really describe this list. And I'd like to give this to you as a challenge. Have a go at changing the France entry so that it contains another dictionary. For the nested dictionary, use the key cities_visited, and for the value, you can keep the list of Paris, Lille, and Dijon. Pause the video now and see if you can get that to work. Alright, so here's the solution. By nesting a dictionary, we can label the Paris, Lille, and Dijon list as cities visited. All I need to do is create the string cities visited and add a colon after it. But there's one more step. We have to add a pair of curly braces so that France is associated with a single value, namely our nested dictionary. Now we have a dictionary of the travel log, all the countries I've been to, and each country has a value that is a dictionary in itself. And it can store multiple pieces of data, including the cities I've visited in that country, as well as things such as the total number of visits, which in this case would have a string as the key and a number as the value. Now have a go at creating your own travel log or modifying the second part of the travel log so that you also have a dictionary nested in a dictionary. And you're able to represent something like this: the number of cities you visited in a list and another additional piece of data if you wanted to. And hopefully you would have done something similar to this. And so now our data structure is such that we've got a list nested inside a dictionary, which is in itself nested in another dictionary. Now that we've seen nesting lists inside dictionaries, dictionaries inside dictionaries, the last thing I want to show you is nesting a dictionary inside a list. So we could basically have multiple dictionaries inside a single list. So remember that lists are ordered and they're accessed by the positions inside the list. So this dictionary would be the item at index 0, this one at index 1, and so on and so forth. Whereas inside a dictionary, the items are accessed by their keys, like this France or Germany. Now, I want to do the last type, which is nesting a dictionary in a list. And I'm going to be working with the same travel log that we had previously, but I want to change it so that instead of having this being one giant dictionary with key value pairs, I want to change it so that each of these entries are a dictionary in itself. Instead of having France be the key of this dictionary here, I want to turn it into its own key value pair. Going inside this dictionary, I'm going to create a new key, which is called country, and then put France as the value for that key. So now I have an entire dictionary that has 3 pieces of data: the country visited, the cities visited, and the total number of visits. Let's do the same for Germany as well. So now you can see we've got 2 dictionaries. And instead of holding these 2 dictionaries inside a dictionary, I'm going to change it so that it's now a list. I'm going to turn these curly braces into square brackets, and this way we can add as many of these dictionaries inside the list and iterate through them if we need to. When we've been creating dictionaries that only have 1 or 2 key value pairs, we've kind of just kept it all on one line. But once you've got more and more key value pairs in the dictionary, it's usually a good idea to go ahead and separate out each of the entries, like what I'm doing here. Now it's a little bit easier to see that we have a list which contains 2 items, and each item is a dictionary. Each dictionary has 3 key value pairs, and they all contain different types of data. The first one has a value, which is a string. The second one holds a list, and the third one holds a number. The data types inside a dictionary can be completely mixed up if you want it to. But what can't change is you still need a key and a value separated by a colon. Now, the only downside to this is you want to make sure that you're actually aware that later on when you try to pull out the number of visits, it's actually a number that you're working with rather than a string. Or when you're trying to get hold of the cities visited, it's a list rather than a dictionary, for example. So now that we've seen various different types of nesting, it's time for you to actually really understand this and get to grips with this concept by completing a challenge yourself. In the next lesson, I've got a coding challenge for you based on this travel log, and you'll need to use what you've learned so far to be able to complete it. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson.